I know George Luerssen because he was my father-in-law. I married his only daughter, Jane. He was always a loyal Penn Stater. He graduated in 1916 in the School of Mineral Industries or something like that. Incidentally, he was at that time, he got the best grades of anybody ever at Penn State. He was surpassed sometime after the war by another boy, but he always made the point that that other boy was in the arts rather than sciences. He was a very, very smart man. When he was in college, he did engineering was part of his curriculum, but I was a civil structural engineer with Gilbert Associates, and he was a metallurgist, of course, with Carpenter, and ultimately he was chief metallurgist at Carpenter when I first knew him, and finally became vice president of Carpenter when he retired. He made a big point of retiring at age 64. He thought that would be kind of neat. But I have copies of several editions of his book. I guess I've read a little of it, and I certainly have discussed parts of it with him. It has some good pictures in it of the different colors of steel as it's heated, and peacock blue and all the rest of it. Very useful book. Apparently used by a lot of students, a lot of schools. One of the neat things that he did that I remember, after he retired, he formed in the neighborhood there, Muhlenberg Park, a stamp club. He himself was a philatelist, and he got maybe 6 or 8 boys, high school age boys in the neighborhood, and really gave them a good grounding in stamp collecting. And that was one of the things that he really enjoyed. He was a very kind, very generous father-in-law, nice sense of humor. We had a lot of good times together. He was a great golfer, an inveterate golfer. Every afternoon on the way home from work, he would stop at the Riverside Golf Course, and I played with him just once. I'm a complete duffer. He armed himself with a 5-iron, and we went around. He just took the 5-iron and popped it right up the middle of the fairway, and that was, in other words, he was really good, but very unassuming. He always had been a very good painter, but then after he retired, he took lessons once a week, Wednesdays, with Ralph Dunkelberger, who was a pretty famous local painter, and they would sometimes go on sort of field trips, and sometimes be, I guess, in Mr. Dunkelberger's studio. But Mr. Luerssen painted a lot of oil paintings. Boy, if you admired one of his pictures, then he'd happily give it to you. That was all he did with his pictures. Either store them away in the closet or give them to people. Mr. Luerssen died in '64. He voted for Goldwater, and he didn't live to find out how the election came out. He died that evening. We visited the building, and in fact, I don't know, a guard or a janitor or somebody let us into the director's room, where there's a portrait of Mr. Luerssen on the wall, and my son got a kick out of that. I don't have any real recollection of a big decision of why we should donate to Penn State Berks, other than that her father was very interested in it, and her two brothers were also Penn State graduates. So it was just natural. We were kind of second-hand Penn State fans. In fact, it doesn't hurt much that my wife, who went to Pembroke, was in college when Joe Paterno was at Brown. I don't say that she knew him, but we always kind of kept an eye on him on that account.